History remembers queens for their power, their conquests, their political brilliance. But what about their hearts? Behind the crowns and thrones, beneath the weight of empires, these women were human. They loved, they longed, they risked everything for passion in an age when a queen's heart was never truly her own. Most love stories from antiquity have been lost to time, buried beneath official histories written by men who saw queens as political pieces, not as women capable of deep emotion. But some stories survived, whispered in palace corridors, preserved in secret letters, encoded in poetry, or simply too scandalous to be forgotten. These aren't fairy tales. These are real women who ruled real empires, who made choices that changed the course of history, often because of love. Some of these romances were celebrated, others were forbidden, dangerous, even deadly. But all of them reveal something profound, that power and passion have always been intertwined, and that queens, despite their crowns, faced the same conflicts between duty and desire that echo through human experience. Today, we're unveiling the secret love stories of ancient queens, tales of romance that defied convention, relationships that shocked their contemporaries, and passions that proved even the most powerful women couldn't always control their hearts. From Egypt to Ethiopia, from Rome to the Middle East, these stories will surprise you, move you, and remind you that behind every throne sat a woman with hopes, dreams, and a heart that could break. Are you ready to discover what history tried to hide? Then let's begin. Let's begin with perhaps the most famous love story in ancient history, though what most people know is merely the surface: Cleopatra VII of Egypt and Mark Antony of Rome. Their romance has been portrayed as everything from political calculation to grand passion. The truth? It was both, and so much more. Cleopatra was 38 when she met Mark Antony in Tarsus in 41 BCE. This wasn't a naive young girl. This was a brilliant, multilingual queen who had already survived palace coups, civil wars, and a previous relationship with Julius Caesar that had produced a son. She knew exactly what she was doing when she arrived to meet Antony dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, sailing on a golden barge with purple sails and silver oars. But here's what the dramatic retellings miss. Cleopatra and Antony genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Ancient sources describe them founding a drinking club called the Inimitable Livers, where they feasted, played pranks, and gambled together. Antony would disguise himself and roam the streets of Alexandria with Cleopatra at night, getting into mischief like ordinary people. This wasn't just political theater. This was two powerful, complex people finding rare companionship in each other. They had 3 children together, twins named Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, and a son named Ptolemy Philadelphus. Antony legally recognized all 3, a significant political statement that infuriated Rome. He was already married to Octavia, sister of his rival Octavian, but he chose to publicly honor his Egyptian family instead. The romance became political dynamite when Antony began giving Roman territories to Cleopatra and their children in what became known as the Donations of Alexandria. To Romans, this looked like treason, their general giving away the empire for a foreign queen. Octavian used this to turn public opinion against Antony, painting Cleopatra as a dangerous seductress who had bewitched Rome's hero. When war became inevitable, Cleopatra insisted on fighting alongside Antony at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Some historians criticize her decision to flee mid-battle with her ships, but recent analysis suggests she may have been executing a strategic retreat to preserve their forces. Antony followed her, abandoning his fleet, a decision that sealed their military fate. The final chapter of their love story is heartbreaking. After Octavian's forces closed in on Alexandria, Antony received false news that Cleopatra had died. Devastated, he fell on his sword. But he didn't die immediately. He lived long enough to be carried to Cleopatra, who had barricaded herself in her mausoleum. Ancient accounts describe him dying in her arms, telling her to remember the happy times. Cleopatra survived him by about 10 days, negotiating desperately with Octavian to spare her children. When she realized he planned to parade her through Rome as a prisoner, she chose death, likely by poison, despite the romantic myth of the asp. She was found dressed in her royal regalia, determined to die as a queen. Their love cost them everything: their kingdoms, their lives, their reputations. But it also gave us one of history's most enduring romances, proof that even those who rule empires can be ruled by their hearts. Hatshepsut is one of ancient Egypt's most successful pharaohs, ruling for over 20 years during the 18th dynasty. But there's a mystery surrounding her personal life that Egyptologists still debate. Who did she love? Hatshepsut started as a queen regent for her young stepson, Thutmose III, but within a few years declared herself pharaoh, a bold and nearly unprecedented move for a woman. She even had herself depicted in male pharaonic regalia, complete with the false beard. But despite presenting herself as a male ruler in official art, Hatshepsut never hid that she was a woman. Her inscriptions refer to her with feminine pronouns. The intriguing part is her relationship with Senenmut, her chief steward and architect. Senenmut came from humble origins but rose to become one of the most powerful men in Egypt, second only to Hatshepsut herself. He designed her magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, one of ancient Egypt's architectural masterpieces. The evidence for their romance is circumstantial but compelling. Senenmut was granted the extraordinary privilege of constructing his tomb beneath Hatshepsut's temple, an honor suggesting intimate favor. He was also tutor to her daughter, Neferu-Ra, giving him unprecedented access to the royal family. Most intriguingly, archaeologists have found graffiti, yes, ancient graffiti, in an unfinished tomb near Deir el-Bahari that depicts a man and woman in an intimate embrace. The figures wear clothing consistent with royal and high official status. While we can't prove it depicts Hatshepsut and Senenmut, the location and timing are suggestive. What makes this potential romance so fascinating is that Hatshepsut couldn't publicly marry Senenmut. He was a commoner and she was pharaoh. If they did share a romantic relationship, it had to remain secret, hidden behind the formalities of court life and the official duties of pharaoh and steward. Senenmut mysteriously disappeared from historical records around year 16 of Hatshepsut's reign. His tomb was never finished, and his sarcophagus was smashed, suggesting he may have fallen from favor or died suddenly. Some historians speculate political intrigue, others natural death. We simply don't know. What we do know is that Hatshepsut continued to rule successfully for several more years, proving she didn't need a man to maintain power. But the question remains: did Egypt's most powerful female pharaoh guard a secret love in her heart? Did she mourn Senenmut in private while maintaining the stoic face of a god-king in public? The mystery endures, a reminder that even in ancient Egypt's well-documented history, some stories remain sealed in the hearts of those who lived them. The Queen of Sheba, known in Ethiopian tradition as Queen Makeda, is one of history's most mysterious figures. Her visit to King Solomon of Israel is mentioned in the Bible, the Quran, and Ethiopian chronicles. But each tradition tells a slightly different story, and the romance between them has been debated for millennia. According to the Ethiopian text Kebra Nagast, the Glory of Kings, Makeda ruled a wealthy kingdom in what is now Ethiopia and Yemen. She heard tales of Solomon's legendary wisdom and decided to visit Jerusalem to test him with riddles and see if the stories were true. The meeting was electric. Solomon, renowned for his wisdom and wealth, was captivated by this queen who dared to challenge him intellectually. Makeda, accustomed to ruling men, met someone who could match her wit. Ancient texts describe them engaging in philosophical debates, sharing meals, and growing increasingly fascinated with each other. The romantic element enters differently depending on which text you read. In the Hebrew tradition, their encounter is brief and respectful, but in the Ethiopian account, Solomon falls deeply for Makeda and desires her to stay. There's a famous story where Solomon makes a deal with her. He won't try to seduce her if she promises not to take anything from his palace without permission. That night, Solomon ensures a lavish feast with heavily spiced foods that make Makeda thirsty. When she wakes in the night and drinks from a water pitcher in her room, Solomon appears, claiming she broke their agreement by taking his water. The deal is void, and, according to the legend, they spend the night together. When Makeda returns to her kingdom, she's pregnant. She gives birth to a son, Menelik, who would eventually travel to Jerusalem to meet his father. Ethiopian tradition claims Menelik brought the Ark of the Covenant back to Ethiopia, where it supposedly remains to this day in the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Aksum. Whether you view this as historical fact, legend, or something in between, the story reveals something profound. Even in ancient times, the idea of a queen traveling thousands of miles to meet someone who intrigued her, engaging him as an equal, and choosing to be with him on her own terms was powerful enough to be remembered for 3,000 years. The Queen of Sheba's story challenges the narrative of women as passive objects of desire. She was the pursuer, the one who initiated the journey, the one who chose, and whether the romance was real or legendary, it represented an ideal that resonated across cultures. That true partnership comes from mutual respect and intellectual connection, not just political arrangement. In the 3rd century CE, the desert city of Palmyra in modern-day Syria produced one of antiquity's most formidable queens, Septimia Zenobia. But before she became the warrior queen who challenged Rome, she was a young woman who married for love in an arranged world. Zenobia married Odaenathus, the ruler of Palmyra, when she was young. Historical sources suggest it was his second marriage, making her a stepmother to his heir. By all accounts, theirs was a partnership of genuine affection and mutual respect, rare for royal marriages of the era. Zenobia wasn't content to remain in the palace. She rode alongside Odaenathus on military campaigns, learning strategy and warfare. Ancient historian Zosimus wrote that she was more brave than her husband. She spoke multiple languages, Palmyrene Aramaic, Egyptian, Greek, and possibly Latin, and claimed descent from Cleopatra, consciously modeling herself on Egypt's legendary queen. When Odaenathus and his eldest son were assassinated in 267 CE, likely by rivals, Zenobia didn't retire to mourn quietly. She declared herself regent for her young son Vaballathus, and then effectively took sole power. Some historians suggest she may have been involved in her husband's assassination, but there's no conclusive evidence. What we do know is that she honored his memory publicly while carving her own path to power. Here's where her story becomes extraordinary. Zenobia began expanding Palmyra's territory, conquering Roman provinces in the Middle East and Egypt. She declared independence from Rome, minted her own coins featuring her image alongside her son's, and styled herself Augusta, Empress. But there's a lesser-known aspect of Zenobia's story, her relationship with the philosopher Longinus. He was her tutor, advisor, and possibly her intellectual soulmate. Ancient sources describe him as her closest confidant. Some historians speculate their relationship was romantic, though evidence is limited. What's clear is that Longinus represented something important to Zenobia: intellectual partnership, cultural refinement, the life of the mind that balanced her warrior's spirit. When Roman Emperor Aurelian finally marched against Palmyra in 272 CE, Zenobia fought brilliantly but was eventually defeated. She was captured and brought to Rome. Aurelian executed her closest advisors, including Longinus. Ancient sources disagree on Zenobia's fate. Some say she died on the journey to Rome, others that Aurelian paraded her through the streets in golden chains before giving her a villa where she lived out her days. The romantic tragedy is that Zenobia lost everyone she loved: her husband to assassination, her kingdom to conquest, and Longinus to execution. Yet she never broke. Even in defeat, she maintained her dignity and her defiant spirit. Zenobia's story teaches us that love for ancient queens wasn't always about romance. It was also about finding partners who matched their intellect, shared their ambitions, and stood beside them in the pursuit of something greater than themselves. In the 14th century BCE, Egypt witnessed one of the most radical transformations in its 3,000-year history. At the center of this revolution was a love story between Pharaoh Akhenaten and his great royal wife, Nefertiti, a partnership so equal, so revolutionary, that it changed Egyptian religion, art, and politics. Nefertiti's origins are mysterious. We don't know exactly where she came from, though she may have been of royal blood or a daughter of high nobility. What we do know is that when she married Amenhotep IV, who would become Akhenaten, she became far more than a typical royal wife. Together, they initiated a religious revolution, abandoning Egypt's traditional polytheistic religion to worship a single god, the Aten, represented by the sun disk. Amenhotep changed his name to Akhenaten, effective for Aten, and they built a new capital city, Akhetaten, modern Amarna, dedicating it to their god. But here's what makes their relationship remarkable. The art from their period depicts them with unprecedented intimacy and equality. We see them holding hands, embracing, kissing, playing with their 6 daughters. Nefertiti is shown in poses traditionally reserved for pharaohs, smiting enemies, making offerings, even wearing the pharaonic crown. Some scholars believe she may have briefly ruled as pharaoh herself after Akhenaten's death, possibly under the name Neferneferuaten. Their love seems to have been genuine partnership. Letters from foreign kings address Nefertiti directly, acknowledging her power. The royal couple's affection for each other is evident in the informal art of the period, images of them relaxing with their children, sharing meals, existing as a family rather than merely as symbols of power. But revolutionary love comes with revolutionary consequences. The religious changes alienated the powerful priesthood of Amun and confused the common people. After Akhenaten's death, the old religion was restored, Akhetaten was abandoned, and later pharaohs tried to erase Akhenaten and Nefertiti from history. Yet they couldn't erase the love story. The famous bust of Nefertiti, discovered in a sculptor's workshop in Amarna, shows a woman of stunning beauty and fierce intelligence. When you look into those painted eyes, you see someone who dared to love boldly, rule equally, and challenge everything for what she and her husband believed. Their story reminds us that the most dangerous love stories are those that challenge the status quo, and that true partnership between equals can threaten entire power structures. In 6th century Constantinople, a young actress named Theodora caught the eye of Justinian. heir to the Byzantine throne. Their love story would become one of the most controversial and transformative romances in history because Theodora came from the very bottom of society, and Justinian would make her his equal at the very top. Theodora's early life was hard. She was the daughter of a bear trainer at the Hippodrome and worked as an actress, a profession associated with prostitution in Byzantine society. The elite considered actresses morally corrupt and legally inferior. There were even laws preventing senators from marrying them. But Justinian saw something in Theodora that went beyond social prejudice. Historical accounts suggest he fell deeply in love with her, not just for her beauty, but for her intelligence, wit, and strength of character. This wasn't a casual affair. Justinian wanted to marry her, and he was willing to change the law to do it. When his uncle, Emperor Justin I, was persuaded to repeal the law prohibiting senators from marrying actresses, Justinian immediately married Theodora. When he became emperor in 527 CE, he crowned her empress and made her his full partner in ruling the Byzantine Empire. What makes their love story extraordinary is how Theodora used her position. She wasn't content to be a decorative empress. She influenced policy, particularly laws protecting women. She established homes for former prostitutes, created laws allowing women to own property, and made it illegal to force women into prostitution. She prohibited the killing of wives caught in adultery, a legal right men had held. The most famous moment of their partnership came during the Nika riots in 532 CE, when massive civil unrest threatened to overthrow Justinian. His advisors urged him to flee Constantinople. Justinian was ready to run. But Theodora stood firm. In one of history's great speeches, she declared, "Royal purple is the noblest shroud." Her courage inspired Justinian to stay and fight. He regained control, and the Byzantine Empire survived. Historians argue that without Theodora's resolve in that moment, Justinian's reign and his legendary building projects like the Hagia Sophia would never have happened. Procopius, the court historian, wrote two contradictory accounts of Theodora. In his official history, he praises her dignity and intelligence. In his sacred history, written after her death, he paints her as scandalous and manipulative. This contradiction itself tells us something. Theodora was a woman who couldn't be ignored. She was powerful, controversial, and unforgettable. Justinian and Theodora ruled together for 21 years until her death in 548 CE. Justinian was devastated. He never remarried, and he continued to consult her memory in his decisions. When he was buried 17 years later, they laid him to rest beside her. Their love story proves that true partnership transcends social class, that love can be a force for social change, and that the most powerful empires are sometimes built by two hearts beating as one. We've journeyed through centuries and across continents, exploring the secret love stories of queens who ruled empires. From Cleopatra's passionate partnership with Mark Antony to Hatshepsut's possible hidden romance with Senenmut. From the Queen of Sheba's intellectual connection with Solomon to Zenobia's defiant partnerships. From Nefertiti and Akhenaten's revolutionary equality to Theodora's transformative love with Justinian. What did these stories teach us? First, that love and power have always been intertwined in complex ways. These queens couldn't separate their hearts from their crowns. Their romances had political consequences. Their political decisions were influenced by personal bonds. Second, that being a queen didn't protect you from heartbreak. If anything, it made love more dangerous. A queen's choice of partner could spark wars, shift dynasties, or threaten her very throne. Yet these women loved anyway, proving that even those with the most power couldn't always control their hearts. Third, that history has often erased or simplified these love stories. Male historians dismissed royal romances as scandalous distractions or reduced complex women to seductresses and temptresses. Only recently have scholars begun recovering the full human stories of these queens, their struggles, their choices, their genuine emotions. Perhaps most importantly, these stories reveal that ancient queens faced the same fundamental conflicts we face today: the tension between duty and desire, between public expectation and private truth, between the roles we're assigned and the lives we actually want to live. Cleopatra chose love, even knowing it would lead to war. Hatshepsut may have loved in secret to protect her throne. The Queen of Sheba traveled thousands of miles to meet someone who intrigued her mind. Zenobia found partnership in both her warrior husband and her philosopher advisor. Nefertiti built an equal partnership that threatened an empire's traditions. Theodora proved that love could transcend every social barrier and transform two people into history's most effective ruling team. These weren't weak women undone by romance. These were brilliant, powerful leaders who understood that love, whether romantic, intellectual, or partnership-based, could be a source of strength, not weakness. They chose to love boldly in an age when queens weren't supposed to have that freedom. And their choices echo through history, reminding us that the most human parts of ourselves, our capacity to love, to connect, to choose partners who challenge and complete us, are precisely what make us capable of greatness. As we close this journey through the secret love stories of ancient queens, one question remains: why do these stories still matter? They matter because they're true. These weren't fairy tales. These were real women navigating real challenges, making choices that shaped empires and left marks on history that we can still see today. The architecture they built, the laws they changed, the cultural transformations they initiated, all were influenced in some way by the people they loved. They matter because they challenge our assumptions. We imagine ancient queens as cold political calculators or helpless pawns in male power games. But these stories reveal women who were fully human, strategic and passionate, powerful and vulnerable, capable of both ruling empires and falling in love. They matter because they've been hidden for too long. For centuries, historians either dismissed these romances as scandalous footnotes or erased them entirely to maintain simplified narratives of history. By recovering these stories, we recovered the full humanity of women who deserve to be remembered as complete people, not just as names in a textbook. And they matter because they speak to something universal. The conflicts these queens faced, between duty and desire, between public image and private truth, between the expectations of others and the authenticity of the heart, are conflicts we still face today. Their struggles to love on their own terms, to choose partners who match them intellectually and emotionally, to maintain both power and intimacy, these are timeless human challenges. The secret love stories of ancient queens teach us that love has always been revolutionary. It breaks down barriers of class, as Theodora proved. It creates partnerships that can challenge religious tradition, as Nefertiti and Akhenaten showed. It can be worth losing everything for, as Cleopatra demonstrated. It can be worth hiding to protect what you've built, as Hatshepsut may have chosen. It can inspire journeys of thousands of miles, as the Queen of Sheba proved, and it can give you strength to defy empires, as Zenobia's partnerships did. These queens loved boldly in ages that demanded they love carefully. They chose their hearts even when it cost them dearly. And because they did, we remember them not just as powerful rulers, but as complete human beings whose lives still resonate with meaning. So what's your takeaway? Maybe it's that power and passion aren't enemies, they can strengthen each other. Maybe it's that the most important partnerships are between equals who challenge each other to be better. Maybe it's simply that everyone, even queens, deserves to love and be loved on their own terms. Whatever lesson speaks to you, carry it forward, because the echoes of these ancient love stories haven't faded. They're still whispering to us across the centuries, reminding us that the bravest act of all, for queens and commoners alike, is to love authentically in a world that constantly demands we be something else. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the secret love stories of ancient queens. We've traveled from Egypt to Ethiopia, from Rome to Byzantium, uncovering romances that shaped empires and challenged everything we thought we knew about power and passion in the ancient world. If these stories moved you, educated you, or changed how you think about history, I'd love for you to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're dedicated to uncovering the hidden stories of history, the human moments behind the grand narratives, the personal truths beneath the political facts. Drop a comment below and tell me, which queen's love story resonated with you most? Was it Cleopatra's passionate partnership with Mark Antony? Hatshepsut's possible hidden romance? The Queen of Sheba's intellectual connection with Solomon? Zenobia's defiant loves? Nefertiti's revolutionary equality? Or Theodora's transformative journey from actress to empress? And here's an even bigger question. What other hidden love stories from history should we uncover? Are there queens, empresses, or powerful women from other cultures whose romances deserve to be told? Your suggestions help guide our research and ensure we're sharing the stories that matter most to you. Remember, history isn't just about dates and battles and political treaties. History is about people, their hopes, their fears, their loves, their losses. When we remember the full humanity of those who came before us, we honor them and learn something profound about ourselves. These queens loved boldly, ruled brilliantly, and left legacies that echo through time. May we all be brave enough to do the same. Until next time, keep exploring the hidden corners of history. The past has so many secrets left to tell, and every one of them is a reminder that we're part of a story much bigger and more beautiful than we can imagine.